Welcome to part 2 of how to negotiate with a narcissist using FBI hostage negotiation tactics. I'm going to show you the big trick that they play on us in order to disempower us, and specifically what you can do to increase the probability that you get an outcome that works for you. The trick they play is quite simple. We have two situations. One is reality, and in all of the situations we have two people. There's you and there is the narcissist. Both of you have advantages and both of you have disadvantages. They want you to be blinded to what reality actually looks like. And how they do this, they play a simple trick, which is they keep you hoping for another reality. The other reality usually is linked to the love bombing phase. It is the past. It's the thing that you want to happen. It's the thing that you hope will happen. And this is the part that is rather difficult to let go of. So, because we are continuously hoping that something is going to happen or something is going to work out, we have all of our focus on the past instead of looking at reality. The real question to ask ourselves is, if we believe it's going to happen, why is that? For what reason does it seem like a plausible possibility that it's going to happen, and what is the probability that we imagine that it is going to happen? If we do a graph of how things have been working out, and they started out pretty nicely and then they got rather dismal, we see that the past was quite nice, the recent past has been rather bad, then we can wonder if it is possible that things get better. But does it really seem likely when we see that all of the recent past has been rather bad and there's no major reason for things to improve? But provided we have hope, we're not willing to give up the good memories of the past. That is the trick they are playing. So instead of looking at the past and keeping to hope, what we need to do, and what they do not want us to do, what they don't want you to do, is to look specifically at the reality today. There's a reason why you don't want to do it. And possibly the reason why you don't want to do it is because it's rather painful. It's unpleasant to admit that things are not going great. It's also unpleasant to admit that maybe you need to do something such as, for instance, have an unpleasant conversation with a narcissist, put in healthy boundaries, especially if you don't like healthy boundaries, maybe need some form of conflict, maybe you need to be willing to leave the situation altogether or threaten the other person with consequences if they don't start acting in a cordial way. For some people, this is so terrifying they'd rather put up with the abuse than actually put down healthy boundaries. Understandable, but not great. In order to let go of the past, I'd like you to think you had certain advantages, which was that it felt fantastic. But what were your disadvantages? And mainly, the biggest disadvantage you had is that this was a lie. All of the advantages actually were a lie. It was false. It was made on purpose in order to manipulate you. So let's imagine it is actually possible for you to go back to that past. Would you really want to go back to a past where you are being lied to, where you are being manipulated, where all of your happy moments, all of your positive moments are simply fake and false, and someone is taking the mickey out of you, and someone is taking you for a ride? Once you know it, would you really want that? Once you're willing to completely let go of the past and look at reality, things start changing and you're getting more power. That's exactly what we're going to look at now. So if we look at reality, you've got some disadvantages, the situation is unpleasant, and you need to be looking at the advantages that you have, such as you're avoiding conflict, and maybe you're finding that the balance is sort of okay, but if you're watching this kind of video, maybe you're beginning to wonder, is it really worth it? Is this really what I want in the present? And knowing that if I don't change anything, this continues to be my present. What narcissists will do is they will be imposing what they want onto you and make you feel that it's their way or the highway. And now I'm going to show you exactly how to manage this. It doesn't systematically work, but it might be your best possible bet. What you need to do is figure out what disadvantages can be created for the narcissist with the current situation, preferably that you can blame on them. One of the disadvantages might be, for instance, if they lied about their finances, to go and tell the tax authorities. And you can say that without threatening them that you'll do it, but simply say something along the lines of, I'm really scared I've thought about the situation. I'm not comfortable. I can't do anything. I thought you had told the tax authorities, but now I'm afraid. I'm really sorry. I will have to act a certain way because otherwise I'm too scared. What you want to do is you want to play one of their games. You want to disempower yourself as much as possible to make it feel that the current reality, which we can call scenario A, which is the one they want, is no longer an option. And therefore, you're going to shift to scenario B. Scenario B is a situation in which they have significant disadvantages, and they will not want that to happen. With all of this process, it's really important. You want, as much as possible, to remove yourself from the equation. You can come up with inconveniences why you can't do a certain thing, but largely you want to remove yourself and you want to focus on them. Scenario B must be a scenario in which they have significant disadvantages, they have a problem, and they will not want it. But scenario B will happen if you do nothing. And therefore, you suggest scenario C, and scenario C has to be something that has some advantages for them, which lead to a better outcome, and also have better advantages for you. In which case, you're suggesting, let's look for something where you feel comfortable that you can live with, so you, the viewer, but also that the narcissist can live with. And you don't want to give up on anything that seems unreasonable. For instance, if you have a colleague who's acting in an unhealthy way, you might say something along the lines of, I don't feel comfortable dealing with this. I don't think it's my responsibility. I'm feeling forced to escalate this with HR because I'm not comfortable living with the possibility that they find out and I didn't say anything. I don't want this situation of conflict. You systematically are creating conflict anytime there's a disagreement. Anytime you don't get your way, you're turning this into a fight. I'm really sorry. I don't want to turn this into a fight. Of course, you have the possibility of no longer creating a situation of conflict. But if you prefer to work this out with HR, we can work it out with HR. We want to tie in scenario B to their own actions. Scenario B is happening because of something you did. I wasn't against scenario A, but you made scenario A impossible. Therefore, we're switching to scenario B. But I realize that scenario B has these problems for you, and therefore I wish we can find scenario C. Scenario C, we're going to be focusing on the advantages for you, but the only way where I can make scenario C happen is if I get the right motivation. Because if I am not interested in doing it, I will do nothing, and if I do nothing, then scenario B is the one that is happening, which has got the problems for you. It's important here as much as possible to play with the idea that you are sort of powerless. Scenario A has been taken off the table because of something they did. Scenario B, therefore, is the alternative. But you're willing to find scenario C. You're willing to find a solution, even though you're perfectly happy with scenario B. So let's illustrate this using a real example from Chris Voss, the FBI hostage negotiator. A hostage taker says, I have got 4 hostages. I want $20 million and a helicopter, or the hostages die. They are focused completely on their advantages with the situation. If you don't give this to me, this is what happens. The FBI hostage negotiator responds, how am I supposed to do that? I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. I have a problem. I need you to help me find the solution of this. He never says he doesn't want to do it. He just says, I do not know how to do it. He therefore uses his problem to remove the possibility that the hostage taker can get what he wants. I don't know how to get $20 million. I don't know where to find a helicopter. I don't know how to do what you're asking. So scenario A is completely off the table, which leads us to scenario B. For the hostage taker, scenario B looks like no advantage and just a huge disadvantage, which is you're probably going to get killed. If you don't let the hostages go, you're probably not walking out of there alive. But I want to work with you to find a better solution where you actually have a possibility of getting something positive. In other words, staying alive, and you've got a family, you've got children, and you don't want your child to be an orphan, and so on. Sure, there's going to be a downside. You're going to go to jail. But your choice is between having a situation where things are awfully bad for you and for your child, and nothing turns out the way you want, or have a situation where things are not quite so bad, and I'm going to do everything I can to try to bring you the best possible outcome. But remember that the initial situation that you wanted, $20 million and a helicopter, is not happening. For this to work, you have to be crystal clear about giving up hope, seeing reality, figuring out what is the disadvantage the person would have if you do nothing, thanks to your reframe, and then looking for a solution that they can actually accept. This does mean giving in on certain points to the other. It might be helping them maintain their image, their ego, and you've got leverage for this. But it especially means being prepared, like seriously prepared. It also depends on reality. You don't always get what you want, but maybe that's your best hope to get an outcome that works a little bit better for you. Because after all, the alternative is that you are delegating hope to them, hoping something will happen, and provided you are still hooked on the hopium drug, you're doing nothing, and you're serving them the scenario they want on a silver plate.